The Cleveland Cavaliers are back in business as Darius Garland leads the Cavs in a 107-90 win over the New York Knicks in Game 2, tying the series in a game of peace going into Madison Square Garden on Friday night. Coming up on today's show, we break down the Cavs' pivotal win in a must-win Game 2, and they got it done. Cavs fans, let's ride! And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for an all-new episode of the post-game podcast of the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Sacramento Kings. This is Let 'Em Know Kings! And welcome to episode 10 of Let 'Em Know Kings. This is the second episode of the day for you guys, and this is the post-game podcast of the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Sacramento Kings. Earlier today, I did an episode recapping the Sacramento Kings making an absolute statement in their Game 2 victory over the Golden State Warriors. They are leading the Golden State Warriors series 2-0. Today, I'm going to recap the Cleveland Cavaliers as the Cavs, in a must-win Game 2, take care of business as they beat the New York Knicks 107-90 inside Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, tying that series at a game apiece. Before we get into any of that, though, I'm your host, Skylar Weisberg. It is my honor and my privilege to be your host today and every single day of recording this podcast. You can find Let 'Em Know Kings, which is absolutely free and available across 7 great platforms: Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Radio Public, iHeartRadio, or podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/CLESK. You can download the free Spotify for Podcasters app, which is available on your iTunes or Google Play stores, to create a podcast of your own, or you can listen to Let 'Em Know Kings on those 7 great platforms that I just mentioned. If you could be so kind and generous, please give the show a follow on the platforms that I will mention at the end of today's show. You can turn on your notifications so you know about the next episode, which drops. If you could please rate and spread the word out to your friends about Let 'Em Know Kings, I would truly appreciate it. And be on the lookout, because after when I record today's episode, this show will be published on my new blogging website, Let 'Em Know Kings at .wordpress.com. I might have said that whole website wrong, but nevertheless, it will be on there. So again, I thank each and every one of you so much for tuning in to this show. It means a lot to me because I get to do what I love to do, and that is break down Cleveland Cavaliers and Sacramento Kings basketball. Now, I said this in a few prior shows that tonight's Game 2 for the Cleveland Cavaliers is considered a must-win. I mean, coming into the game, they got dominated in Game 1 by the New York Knicks. They were out-physicaled by the New York Knicks on the offensive boards, and the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, which was in the running for NBA Coach of the Year, J.B. Bickerstaff, said, "You got to be more physical than them in order to win. It's that simple." Well, JB, Cleveland did understand the assignment and a whole lot more than that as they take care of business 107-90. And you talk about physicality. This game was absolutely physical from the jump. I mean, bodies were hitting the floor. There was a very violent collision with Jared Allen and Julius Randle late in the game. Evan Mobley was feeling a little bit of frustration, even though he was struggling in Game 2, even though he did a little bit of a bounce-back performance in Game 2 tonight. But the Cleveland Cavaliers tonight played Cleveland Cavalier basketball. It it was kind of like what they normally do during the regular season. And that is they win games on the defensive end. And again, the Cavalier defense came to play, and also a little bit of the offense. But it was not the Donovan Mitchell show. In game one, Donovan Mitchell was the only guy that understood, the only guy, I should say, in a Cleveland Cavalier uniform that understood and knew what it was like to be in the playoffs. And the New York Knicks played an absolute team game. Tonight, on the other hand, completely different story. The Cleveland Cavaliers looked like a different team tonight rather than they did in game one, because the Cavs played by example. They led by example. And it wasn't the Donovan Mitchell show that took complete charge for the Cleveland Cavaliers. It was none other than Darius Garland. I mean, this guy dropped 32 points tonight, and he was like 10 for 11 from the foul line. He simply played his best game in a Cleveland Cavalier uniform. I mean, some other guys did a pretty good job as well. I mean, Donovan Mitchell dropped 17 points tonight. He had 13 assists, which is unlike Donovan Mitchell because he's more of a scorer than a passer, but nonetheless, the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, JB Bickerstaff, talked about how Cleveland can impact the game in different ways. And I think this was another example of how Cleveland can impact the game. And it's not just their three-point shooting or lack of their three-point shooting. I'm talking about the number one defense in the NBA that showed up and showed out tonight, as well as many players that impact the game. For the New York Knicks, I think the Knicks got a little bit of a dose of reality tonight. I mean, Julius Randle did lead the New York Knicks with 22 points with 8 rebounds, assist, and a block. Jalen Brunson did his thing with 20 points with 9 for 10 for the foul line. Got to give big respect for him. He also grabbed 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 steals. Quentin Grimes did drop 4 points. RJ Barrett dropped 14 points. But the biggest shock factor is we limited Josh Hart to only 5 points and 4 rebounds. If you remember, in game one, Josh Hart completely dominated the New York Knicks on the boards as he dropped 17 points and 10 rebounds. Tonight, we limited Josh Hart to only 4 rebounds and 5 points. Complete improvement for the Cleveland Cavaliers, despite the fact that Josh Hart was coming into this game with an injured ankle. He was doubtful to begin the day, but rounded up playing 27 minutes coming off the bench. Emmanuel Quickly, that was the biggest shock factor for me for New York. He only had 12 points, a rebound, an assist, and 2 steals. I mean, look, if this guy was supposed to be your 6-man player of the year, you're supposed to play like it. And all credit to the Cleveland Cavalier defense for taking him out of his game. The stats for this game, pretty much all Cleveland. 49% for the field shooting, and 42% from three-point range. They knocked down 14 threes tonight, which was much better than game one. The free throw percentage pretty much even. The rebounds, again, all Cleveland's favor, 43-36, including 32 defensive rebounds and 11 offensive rebounds. In game one, the New York Knicks grabbed 17 offensive rebounds. The Knicks tonight only grabbed 13 offensive rebounds. A little better on the defensive side of the ball for Cleveland, yes. But I still think at points that they still need to work on boxing out. And come Friday night in game 3, that is going to be a really big factor because you are no longer playing in Cleveland. You are going to Madison Square Garden. You are going to New York City. You are going to the world's most famous arena. And Lord knows Donovan Mitchell plays well in New York City. So I expect him to do his damn thing for Cleveland. Back to the stats, 26 assists for the Cleveland Cavaliers compared to 16 points for 16 assists, I should say, for the New York Knicks. The steals, the advantage for New York. I think New York was a little more scrappy than the Knicks. New York was a little bit more scrappy than the Cavs, I should say. On the defensive side of the ball, the blocks, 7-5 in favor of Cleveland. The points of turnovers were pretty staggering, though. Cleveland gave up 29 points of their 18 turnovers. New York gave up 32 points off their 18 turnovers. So for the most part, even though the turnover stats were pretty much even, the Cavs did a better job taking advantage off of the Knicks turnovers, and that was a big example of why they won this game. My MVP for the Cleveland Cavaliers has to be Darius Garland. It has to be Darius Garland because he led the Cleveland Cavaliers in this bounce back effort. He dropped 32 points with 7 assists and 3 rebounds. Jared Allen, 9 points with 10 rebounds. He also had 3 assists and 3 steals. Evan Mobley had a complete bounce back game, and he was vintage Evan Mobley. And as far as I'm concerned, fuck Jaren Jackson Jr. Evan Mobley is my defensive player of the year, and he absolutely proved it tonight with 13 points, 13 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Donovan Mitchell, like I said, with 17 points. I like Donovan Mitchell as far as the scoring prowess goes, but he did impact the game with 13 assists for him, and that is why he got a huge double-double. But another key playmaker for Cleveland that stood out tonight was Caris LeVert. He had 24 points off the bench with 4 rebounds and 3 assists. The combination of Darius Garland and Caris LeVert combined for 56 points. 56 points combined for Darius Garland and Caris LeVert compared to 42 points from Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. Look, with those numbers from Darius Garland, who is one of the most electric guards in the NBA today, and Caris LeVert, who's been a really good player coming off the bench, I mean, I like our chances for Cleveland going into Game 3, but like I said, it is going to be a challenge for the Cleveland Cavaliers because they are going to Madison Square Garden, and I expect the atmosphere to be absolutely crazy. For the most part, though, this was a well-played game for the Cleveland Cavaliers in a must-win Game 2 situation, and luckily for Cleveland, they got the job done when it matters the most. That's going to do it for today's episode of Let 'Em Know Kings. You can find this show on Amazon Music, Google Podcast, Radio Public, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spotify, podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/CLESK, or you can download the Spotify for Podcasters app on your iTunes or Google Play stores. Please give the show a follow on the platforms. Turn on your notifications so you know about the next episode that drops. Please rate and spread the word out to your friends about the show. I'm Skylar Weisberg, and until next time, no matter where you go, be prepared to let them know. I will be back Thursday to recap Game 3 between the Warriors and the Kings. Until then, peace.